I just don't see almost anybody. I mean, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there's someone I'm not thinking of, but I see people like Candace who, from everything I've seen, bends over backward to be like, hey, I am not talking about Jews here. I have nothing but love for Jewish people. I've grown up around Jewish people. That's what I see for the most part, that people that then still just get called anti-Semitic.
Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire are in some serious trouble now as they are starting to take heat from all different sides. Now we have Candace Owens teaming up with Dave Smith, who is also one of Ben Shapiro's favorite people, if you know what I'm saying. And he is even going against the Daily Wire and saying that Candace Owens and her firing from the Daily Wire was completely wrong, handled completely poorly. And Candace Owens actually isn't all of those labels and all of those names that Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, and everybody else who is supporting Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire are trying to label Candace Owens as, and trying to discredit every single thing that Candace Owens is saying by just simply putting a label on her. And you know what label I'm talking about. Dave Smith goes on this show and absolutely shuts all of that stuff down. And he is, like I said, one of Ben Shapiro's favorite people, saying that Candace Owens isn't those things. And that, like I said, the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro are completely wrong for how they're handling this Candace Owens firing. Let's check out this clip here from this Candace Owens episode with Dave Smith talking about the Daily Wire and how they handled the firing.
Rabid pro-Israel voice. I'm going after Rabbi Shmuley, and most people agree, left and right, that he's an interesting person, so to speak. And the truth was, I was really only having Rabbi Barkley on because he had personally written an article about me, not because I think that he's the most logical pro-Israel voice or that he gets it right all the time. I don't think he does. So I do want to offer you an opportunity right here at the beginning. We're seeing right now the media sort of saying that any critique of Israel as a foreign nation kind of registers as a critique of all Jews across the world, which makes it easy to call people anti-Semitic if they disagree with Bibi Netanyahu. So I just want to hear your take on that.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. I think that there's always a better way, I maintain, when there's disagreements to lend themselves to conversations and coming in good faith and understanding your opponent's positions actually what they've said before coming into any conversation. So there's conversations you've had since our conversation that I want to clear up, but also with regard to criticism, the idea that it's not that any criticism of Israel is being labeled as anti-Semitic, but the point is that there's a lot of disproportionate criticism, the singling out, the double standard that Israel's being subjected to. That is grounds for that, I do believe. And I think that there is a catch-22 that happens in the anti-Semitism game.
These people, they just love to, speaking of games, they love to play these games, man. For me, and for a lot of what Candace Owens is saying as well, a lot of the discourse that's happening right now, it's not even really about Israel anymore. It's not even about, Ben Shapiro's favorite country anymore. It's about the Americans who are so obviously bought out or sold out to Ben Shapiro's favorite country, and who obviously care a whole lot more about Ben Shapiro's favorite country than they do America. And you can tell that because all their morals and principles go out the window, like Patrick Bet David was saying. They go out the window whenever Ben Shapiro's favorite country comes up, when this Middle East conflict comes up. That's what we're talking about. How Americans feel so passionately about this war that they have nothing to do with. They really have no skin in the game other than the tax dollars that we're sending over there, which is kind of the whole point of the whole thing, that we shouldn't be doing that because we have no skin in the game. That's really the whole story. That's what I'm criticizing. I'm criticizing Americans. I'm not criticizing, the Ben Shapiro's favorite country, although there are a lot of criticisms that I would throw in that direction. The more pressing issue right now is the way that a lot of Americans, like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, the neocons, are handling this, and whoever this guy is, apparently, Ami Kozak, something like that. How these guys are thinking of this whole thing, bro. It's not even about Ben Shapiro's favorite country anymore. It's about the people who are supporting them and how they are acting to people like Candace Owens, who, whenever they criticize Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, anyone who staunchly supports Ben's favorite country, then they're labeled all these things. They're labeled anti-Semitic. I'll give you one. I'll say it once for the video so you know what I'm talking about for sure. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what Candace is talking about. That's what a lot of these people are talking about.
Where someone can make an incendiary comment, an anti-Semitic remark, and then the Jewish community calls it out. And they say, well, you see, Jews are trying to control me. You see, they're trying to control the speech. And so it almost becomes an impossible task to combat effectively. And I said this in our last conversation, that to call things that are not anti-Semitic is incredibly unproductive and wrong. And it's almost like a cry wolf scenario. But when we do see things that are anti-Semitic and we call it out, or problematic comments that embolden anti-Semitism, a catch-22 forms where I've seen it all over Twitter too, where people say disgusting things about Jews. They couch it sometimes in criticism of Israel. And no one can deny that there's a lot of anti-Semites that disguise themselves in anti-Zionism.
But that's not what we're talking about, dude. Like, these games are just exhausting at this point. That's not what we're talking about. Nobody is talking about the people who are blatantly hating a certain group of people. I don't think anybody co-signs that. That's serious, you know? Maybe you watching this video, some of you might, but personally, I don't. I don't think that hating a certain group of people because of what the higher ups of their country do that's obviously really dumb. That's low IQ behavior. That's like hating all Americans because of things that the CIA has done in the past. That's just stupid. And I don't think anybody, Candace Owens isn't trying to defend that or co-sign that. I'm not. Nobody who's criticizing people like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire that's what we're attacking, saying, no, these obvious people who hate Ben Shapiro's favorite people and they say disgusting things about them and threaten them. Should those people be allowed? They shouldn't be labeled these things. Like, obviously, that's not what we're talking about, dude. We're talking about Candace Owens criticizing that country and criticizing the people who are supporting that country so staunchly, who claim to be America first, and then she gets labeled those things and she gets canceled, she gets fired. That's what we're talking about. So you can stop with these dumb games that you're playing, dude. We're not too stupid enough to fall for that anymore.
Rhetoric, and they say these things, and then when the Jewish community calls it out because they say these Jews are trying to control our narrative, control our speech, then we call it out, they say, you see, and then proceed to double down, and it just continues to spiral. So it leaves the voices who want to speak out productively and constructively about this fairly stuck. And in a world post-October 7th, when we see a rise of anti-Semitic incidences simply because Israel is in a war, and then you see thousands of people, mobs of crowds in the street cheering Intifada revolution, Al-Qassam, here are your next targets, protesting at the Nova exhibit where Jews were slaughtered on October 7th. I was there 2 hours before that with a cohort of comedians visiting. When you're seeing these things and then you see a rise of anti-Semitism, I think rhetoric that contributes to that, we need to be able to, open our ears and eyes to understand that being aware of these things and calling it out is not trying to control or censor. And it is a real thing, even though in the past it may have been an exaggeration. What do you think, Dave?
And by the way, the people that he's talking about are people like Hassan and those types of streamers that are just their brains are just broken. Like, there's no doubt Hassan hates Ben Shapiro's favorite people. And the things that he says, they're wrong. They're disgusting, honestly. And this is coming from someone who would happen to line up with kind of the way he thinks about this Middle East war. And that's just by chance. That has nothing to do with our actual morals or principles or anything. The guy obviously just hates that certain race of people and he wants them gone. Like, the guy supports like Hamas, and he's basically all but said that fully, that he supports that. And that's just insane. That's insane behavior. Like, there's no way around it. That's disgusting. But those people are not taken seriously. Nobody is actually threatened by anything Hassan says, because everybody knows he's just a lunatic. He's just he's a clown. So bringing up stuff that Hassan says and those types of people and trying to say that that's what this conversation is about it's dishonest. It's bad faith. There's no way around it.
Well, I guess I agree to some extent. I mean, I think that there's certainly, like, I see a lot of Jew hating stuff on Twitter. And I do think that when you're Jewish, you kind of can't win. Like, you make a fair point there. It's like, I've heard there was one thing that I got tagged in where it was like, like a whole list of like political commentators with the Star of David, behind it. And it was like, first off, they just got a bunch wrong. Like, a bunch of people who just aren't Jewish were put on there. But then they had like me and Glenn Greenwald and Max Blumenthal and like a bunch of other people. And you're like, yeah, but we're all like the sharpest critics of Israel. And they're like, yeah, but you see, that's the Jewish game. It's like, you control both sides of so it just becomes this thing where it's like, oh, okay, so if I was pro-Israel, that's proof that there's a Jewish conspiracy. If I'm critical of Israel, that's also proof that there's a Jewish conspiracy. So my feeling on that is just kind of it's a losing game, and I find it stupid. And I totally don't like seeing that stuff. I do think that the difference is that these are kind of, for the most part, random Twitter comments, and it's hard to know what's really going on there. Is this somebody trolling? Is this a 15-year-old? I mean, I have no idea what it really is behind that. Whereas when it comes to actual people who are known, who are making these arguments, I just don't see almost anybody. I mean, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there's someone I'm not thinking of, but I see people like Candace who, from everything I've seen, bends over backward to be like, hey, I am not talking about Jews here. I have nothing but love for Jewish people. I've grown up around Jewish people. That's what I see for the most part, that people that then still just get called anti-Semitic. And so, I do, where I would probably disagree a little bit is that I think the idea that if you're critical, look, Douglas Murray just had a debate at the Monk debate the other day. His argument is that being anti-Zionist is being anti-Semitic. And it's remarkable to watch people like Douglas Murray just become woke leftists. When they talk, well, anti-Semitism is a shape-shifting virus, and if you say anything critical of Israel now, you now own the entire history of hating Jewish people or something like that. The truth is that there definitely is more criticism of Israel than there are of other governments, other countries.
Far worse governments, too, I would say.
Yeah, but there's also,
Dude. These people can't be serious. I mean, Dave Smith is making decent points. Yeah, Dave Smith he's defending Candace Owens because Dave Smith is saying exactly what I was saying earlier. And if you guys know, I don't pre-watch these videos. They get sent to me and I react to them live, and then I upload the ones that are worthy of uploading. And Dave Smith is making good points here. He's saying exactly what I was saying, is that these people who are making these disgusting statements, like the guy on the left, Ami, however you say his name, was talking about, that's not what we're talking. Like, that's not what this discussion, it's not what this debate is about. We all know that every single group of people out there have people on Twitter that they, make disgusting statements about that group of people. That's how Twitter works, dude. Like that's always been like that. It's actually been way worse in the past. It's not as bad as it used to be. It's just now people are very soft about it. But what we're talking about is people like Candace being labeled these things. And Dave Smith makes a great point that she's not those things. She's just getting labeled that so that she does get silenced and canceled and fired from the Daily Wire and can't have a voice. But it's not working anymore because people are starting to see the truth. And saying that Ben Shapiro's favorite country gets criticized a lot more, and there's a lot worse governments out there. There's a lot worse countries and militaries out there. That's true. But our entire government, all of our elected officials, and I'm not going to go too deep on this. You probably already know what I'm going to say. They're all sold out to that certain country. Why are so many Americans America first until it comes to that certain country, and then all of a sudden they're that country first? It's the complete opposite. Like, you want to say, for an example, the Russian government is probably a lot worse in this guy's eyes. That's probably one of the countries that he's referring to, and he's going to say there's not as much criticism going towards the Russian government as there is the Ben Shapiro's favorite country government. There's not enough. There's more criticism of Ben Shapiro's favorite country. True, but our elected officials don't shill for Russia like their life depends on it, and they do that for Ben Shapiro's favorite country. So that's why there's so much criticism. That's why there's so many question marks that fly up, around that certain country and around the decisions that American lawmakers and politicians, around those decisions and the statements that they make around that country. That's why there's so much criticism going over there, because I have to dance around my words here, but we're not sold out to Russia, and we are kind of sold out to China, but we're not sold out to all these other countries, even Middle Eastern countries that have far worse governments, no doubt. But we're not, like, it seems like Israel, Ben Shapiro's favorite country, is they act like it's our best friend or something, and I guess in a lot of people's eyes it is, but that's why we're so critical of them, because we have a direct relationship with them. Whereas with these other governments, we're kind of adversaries, to Russia and a lot of these other guys he's referring to.
A lot of reasons why that's the case, other than the fact that it's a Jewish state. And we could get into what all of those are, but you could talk about worse governments. There is something very unique about the relationship between the United States of America and Israel as it pertains to our foreign policy, particularly over the last 20 years, which has been catastrophic for not just our nation, but every nation involved. There's also something different about a war, which I hesitate to even use the word at times because I'm not sure that's the correct word for what we've seen over the last 8 months. I don't know if I can think of another example around the world, again, correct me if I'm wrong, where a captive, permanently stateless refugee group of people are just being...
If you enjoy content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Just mass slaughtered. A group of people who do not have a military of their own, do not have a government of their own, are completely captive and have been ruled by Israel since 1967. That's also unique. And so I think there's a lot at work here. I'm not going to argue that people hating Jews is not an element at all amongst anyone. But at the same time, it's like, if you are for border restrictions, you might attract some people who don't much like Mexicans. And if you're for DEI, you're going to attract some people who don't much like white people. And if you're critical of Israel, you also probably will attract some people who don't like Jews. All of this to me is kind of irrelevant to the real question, which is what Israel is doing to Gaza over the last 8 months and whether or not this is acceptable and whether or not...
Wow, somebody with actual common sense. That's crazy. It's rare to find. I've been liking a lot of the things that Dave Smith has been saying lately, but he made some great points there. Like, yes, whenever you oppose certain things, you're going to attract people who also share those same beliefs, but with an alternative agenda. Like that, of course, that's going to happen. But these people, like Ami Kozak, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, they focus so much on like the identity politics of the thing. Like the things that they criticized leftists of before, they're now doing those same things. You know, it's like, and they don't even see it. They don't even recognize the hypocrisy. They're so blinded by their love for Ben Shapiro's favorite country. They're incapable of seeing it, of the hypocrisy. Dave Smith is actually able to zoom out and unbiasedly look at the situation and say, oh, this is wrong. And it's not because these people are this label or this istophobe or that. It's because it's just wrong. And we should probably stop doing that. You know, we should probably stop funding this thing that's happening over there in the Middle East, because it's not nice. It's not looking too pretty right now. It's pretty bad. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about Dave Smith actually going on Candace Owens' show. And like I said, he is one of Ben Shapiro's favorite people. And he goes on there and defends Candace Owens and says, yes, there's some Twitter users out there, of course, that are saying bad things. And they're those labels that Ben Shapiro likes to throw out so much. But people like Candace Owens and these other people that have platforms and microphones most of the time are not that thing. They're just a little bit critical of that certain country. But Hassan, people like Hassan, of course, they are that thing. Like, let's be real. Like, they are 100% that label that Ben Shapiro likes to throw around. Nobody even takes him seriously enough to label him that, though. You know, nobody takes Hassan seriously. He will take Candace Owens seriously. And whenever you label her that thing, it does put a stain on her record. Although that word, that label that they throw around so much is losing its value, is losing its meaning, as much as racist or misogynist and all these other words have lost their meaning as well. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about Dave Smith actually just shutting down all the stuff that's been said about Candace Owens by Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, and the rest of those people. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Daily Wire versus Candace Owens situation.